What's up, everybody? I am Ryan Thomas. Welcome back to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm your host once again, bringing you another edition of the Thomas Take. Very exciting day today for me. I just wrapped up my 2017 Yahoo Sports Fantasy Baseball Draft, in which I think, once again, the Champ has a formidable roster. My plan going into this draft was to kind of let the board flow, let the board come to me, so to speak, and I think I did that. I picked 8th in this year's draft, and my first pick was Giancarlo Stanton. Now, obviously, it was a bit of a chance, but no power hitter has a more raw power ability than Giancarlo Stanton. I think it'll be very interesting to see how that pans out for me. I like to take a chance. Obviously, this league was a keeper league. So I'm going to go through the draft picks in the first round. My buddy Adam Zarpa from the Zone. Zarp Ice took Mike Trout. Ryan Gilbert took Clayton Kershaw. Paul Goldschmidt. Joel took Yoenis Cespedes. Zach took Joey Votto. Alec took Miguel Cabrera. My dad, the Tides, took Trey Turner. And then I took Giancarlo Stanton. At that point, the second round, we'd seen a lot of guys being kept and so on and so forth. And I won't go through the whole fantasy baseball draft, but I am excited for this year's fantasy baseball season. I am excited for this year's baseball season. And realistically, I think at this current point, fantasy baseball is at an all-time high. Baseball in general, coming off that amazing World Series in which the Cubs and Indians went 7 games, where the Cubs won that series in 7. It was a remarkable series, probably, in my mind, the best World Series of all time, in recent memory especially, arguably of all time in general. I really loved that World Series. Everything about it was just a storybook ending. And one of the guys I really was looking to get was Anthony Rizzo. I passed on him for Giancarlo Stanton. I took Buster Posey in the 3rd and Jonathan Lucroy in the 5th and Will Myers in the 7th. So I got 3 guys that can play first, 2 guys that can play catcher, and then Will Myers, who can also play first and outfield. So I got some flexibility there. Adam Jones in the 6th round, and then from there, 2 players that I'm really excited about are obviously actually 2 pitchers that I got in the late rounds. Danny Duffy, the Kansas City Royals pitcher who has been a stud in the World Baseball Classic, and then Dallas Keuchel, who had a down year with the Houston Astros, but I think I'm expecting him to pick things up. Andrew Benintendi, Yu Darvish, Ken Giles, the Astros closer, Hunter Pence, who I always seem to get, Justin Turner, and Adam Wainwright. That was my team. Now I'm going to go to Eric Farfalia's team. That is the next team up. Paul Goldschmidt, as I mentioned earlier, Nolan Arenado, Madison Bumgarner, A.J. Pollock, Cole Hamels, Xander Bogaerts, Carlos Gonzalez, J.D. Martinez. Then he went with Aroldis Chapman, 67th overall. Matt Carpenter, Carlos Carrasco, DJ Limatheu, probably saying that wrong, Edwin Diaz, Ian Desmond, Herrera, Osuna, Hill, Bregman, Betances, and Grandal. So obviously, baseball, you got 20 picks, and it's not 16 like football is. So it's definitely a different dynamic than football, obviously. So you need to make sure that you have a well-versed roster. Fantasy tips for people in open drafts. I always try to get one of the better first basemen in the league. Whether it's Rizzo or Miggy or Votto, one of those 3 guys going into 2017 will be a stud. All 3 of those guys, I feel, will be studs at the first base position. Obviously, number one, I'd have Jose Altuve at second. But if you have not checked out my rankings on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page, I posted those recently, and I'm actually going to look those up now. Very excited to give you guys more fantasy information. So if you guys are fantasy baseball fans, fantasy baseball players, I should say, I'm going to keep you informed. So let's see here. Let's see what we got here. So, fantasy baseball, my first baseman rankings, I have the top 10. Paul Goldschmidt at 1 of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Anthony Rizzo, number 2 for the Cubs. Miguel Cabrera for the Tigers. Votto for the Reds. Evan Encarnacion for the Indians. Murphy for the Mets. Matt Carpenter for the Cardinals. Freddie Freeman, Will Myers, and Jose Abreu. So those are guys that I really like for the first base position, and I expect that to obviously remain virtually the same as the season wears on. The fantasy baseball rankings catcher for the catcher position: Buster Posey, number 1. Kyle Schwarber, Jonathan Lucroy, Gary Sanchez of the New York Yankees, who had a fantastic season for the Yankees last year during the tail end of the season. Wilson Contreras, Salvador Perez, JT Realmuto, Russell Martin, Wellington Castillo, and Yasmani Grandal. Very excited about my catcher rankings as well. And then obviously outfielders: Mike Trout, obviously the number 1 consensus best player in the major leagues right now. Mookie Betts, who in my eyes will be challenging Trout as the best player in baseball and should have won the AL MVP last year. Chris Bryant of the Chicago Cubs, Bryce Harper, Charlie Blackmon, Trey Turner, who's a newbie but a guy that I expect to make big waves this season, George Springer, Ryan Braun, Andrew McCutchen, and Giancarlo Stanton. So, according to my top 10, I ended up with 2 of the top 10 outfielders, McCutchen and Stanton, at 9 and 10. My father has Mookie Betts and Chris Bryant. Mookie Betts and Bryce Harper, I should say. So that will be a very interesting dynamic. Then shortstop, Manny Machado at 1. He does have shortstop eligibility. Carlos Correa at 2. Corey Seager, number 3. Xander Bogaerts, Francisco Lindor, Jonathan Villar, he had over 60-some steals last year. Jean Segura, Trevor Story, Almeida Diaz, and Addison Russell. It gets a little thin as the positions go down. And then second base, Jose Altuve, Daniel Murphy, Brian Dozier, Trey Turner, Matt Carpenter, Robinson Cano, DJ LeMahieu, Dustin Pedroia, Rune Odor, and Jean Segura as well can play second base. Then at third, you have one of the better power hitters in the game, Josh Donaldson of the Blue Jays, Bryant of the Cubs, Machado of the Orioles, Nolan Arenado. This is a guy that is fastly rising in the ranks through the major leagues. Arenado, Carpenter, Seager, Bregman, Villar, Beltre, and Justin Turner. So I got 2 of the top 10 third basemen as well. Very excited. I am a 2-time champ. So if anybody knows, not even a 2-time champ, I'm a 3-time champ in both sports, in both football and baseball. So if you want fantasy advice, you got to listen to the guy that has won in 2015, 2016, back-to-back fantasy baseball champion, a guy that has went to the fantasy football finals 3 years in a row, winning 2 of 3. And I expect my success to continue. Nobody knows these players, I feel, better than me in terms of their statistic production, where they're at in their careers, what I can expect out of these players. I want to give this information to you, the listeners, and let you guys know that, hey, I'm a guy that you can lean on for fantasy baseball advice. I am a 3-time champion, won the last 2 seasons in a row. And judging by my team, I think I got a damn good chance at maybe the 3-peat. We will see. I think right now, power rankings-wise, I would be number 1. I think my dad would be number 2. I definitely think Zarpa got a decent team with Trout and Donaldson right there. Those 2 players will be real key contributors to his team. Daniel Murphy is a guy that is an average machine. Charlie Blackmon, his first 4 picks were stars. And I think that would be it, really, for the top 4 at least. You know, add in Zach in that mix as well. He's got decent pitching as always. And then you can maybe go Joel, Eric, Ryan. Yeah, probably in that order. So, you know, not to slight anybody, but that's just how I see it post-draft. Obviously, it could change at any given point. Baseball is a crazy sport. It's such a long season. So, very excited. Thank you for joining me, you know, for this year's 2017 Lockport Fantasy Baseball Draft. Stay tuned for more.